key factor in immigration is the numbers. I find this to be an incredibly frightening future. Some of you are going to be angry when you see it. But please remember that if immigration is a problem, the problem is not immigrants. The problem is immigration policy and the officials who set that policy. Almost nothing will have more impact on how you live the rest of your life in the United States, or the kind of country that your children and grandchildren live in, than how Congress sets these numbers. Now, this was the United States at the end of the first census in 1790, when it found 4 million people. We grew incredibly rapidly from 1790 to 1915, just before World War I. The second 100 million grew much faster to 1970. The baby boomers, starting to enter their childbearing years, adopted a fertility that was replacement level, about an average of 2 children per couple. The green that you see rising above the blue is the population growth that would have happened if Congress had not forced higher immigration, and would rise to 257 million in 2020, and then basically stabilize through 2050. This was the Earth Day vision that the class of 1970 had chosen. Instead, Congress constantly increased immigration from 1970 on. In the 1970s, Congress increased immigration levels from the 250,000 that was traditionally, and from the 50s and 60s, to 425,000 a year. And then, in the 1980s, Congress increased immigration still further to 635,000 per year. That wasn't enough for Congress. Population wasn't growing fast enough. So in 1990, they passed another big increase. And since 1990, Congress has been running immigration at more than 1 million a year, 4 times higher than the traditional level. Now, this doesn't even include the illegal immigration. The American people never asked for any of these increases. Polls show that there was never a time when much more than 10% of the American people wanted higher immigration. Now, this is what the census says actually happened since 1970. This is the actual population growth to 2010. The red represents the population growth forced by Congress and its immigration decisions. Instead of the U.S. never reaching the third 100 million, it reached the third 100 million before 2010. And for the first time in our history, the majority of our population growth came from new immigrants and the births to immigrants. Using Census Bureau projections of fertility and mortality, I would like to know what lies in our future. The fact is, Congress has paid no attention to that future. Look at the difference between that red line that Congress is taking us to and the green line, which was the choice of the American people through their own private decisions about their family size. Imagine how that changes the way this country handles its biggest problems. And of course, the trajectory doesn't stop in 2050, it moves on. We will be adding our 5th 100 million in 2070 and our 6th 100 million just before the end of the century, before apparently hitting about 625 million people. That's approaching 500 million more people in this country than we had in 1970. Look around you. The people of the United States are not able to achieve the quality of life they want with 300 million people. Are we really comfortable making our descendants live with 600 million people packed into this country? This yellow line represents the change that could happen in our population growth trajectory if we would immediately adopt a replacement level immigration. That is, bringing in the same number of immigrants as people leave the country every year. And right now, that would be around our traditional level. There would be immediate reductions in infrastructure demands for those of us alive today. We could enjoy the benefits of cutting in half all the extra demands on our infrastructure, cutting in half all the extra congestion. By 2050, we would have 80 million fewer people to accommodate than if we leave the status quo immigration in place. The difference in the scenarios becomes really astounding when you go out to the end of the century. The question is, do we allow immigration to double our population and add another 300 million into other communities at the end of this century? That is a future that does not have to happen. We can make the right choice now.